was a former member of our board many years ago, and kind of an activist in town, a lot of causes from church to veterans to the South Barry. So I'd just like to ask for a brief moment of silence. Okay, thank you. We have the first order of business. We have quite a few things tonight. A lot of them are kind of business type things to take care of, just kind of routine type issues, but they have to be dealt with. Our first order of business tonight is a continuation of the poll petition, and I guess it's actually technically a new.
It is a new one.
New petition, and I will read that. And in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 166, Section 22, notice is hereby given that the Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, November 6th, 2017 at 6:35 p.m. in the Board of Selectmen's meeting room in the Henry Woods Building, 40 West Street, Barre, Massachusetts, on the following poll petition. Adams Road, National Grid to install 6 poles, 2 brush brace line extension to serve 1 house. This begins at a point approximately 169 feet southeast of the center line of the intersection of Fruitland and continuing approximately 791 feet in an easterly direction. Location approximately as shown on plan attached. Interested parties will have the opportunity to be heard. Copies of the complete applications are available for inspection during business hours in the Selectmen's office at the above address. The meeting area is accessible. Persons requiring special accommodation should contact the Selectmen's office in advance, and it's for the board from Faye Sokowski. And we have the maps, and we have here again from the National Grid. And
my name is Rich Naleski, and I work in the National Grid Engineering Office in Athol. This is a similar but different plan for Adams Road. We've shortened it up a little bit because the lot that's going to be served now is a little bit closer to the intersection of Fruitland Road, and we've moved 3 of the pole locations across the street. We had to, I don't know if you remember, but we had to move the pole locations further away from the gravel center of the road toward the stone wall. And there was an abutter who would not grant easements for anchors on the other side. So we moved the poles 2, 3, and 4 over to the other side. There is an agreeable landowner on the other side of the road, and he actually he actually purchased that piece of land from the Stevenses, who owned the lot that is going to be served. So there's a relationship there. There's no problem with the easements. So that's what we have before the board tonight. We did go out there with Jay, and he viewed the pole and anchor locations as they were staked, and he didn't have any problem with those. So we ask for your consideration this evening.
okay, board members, any questions?
Certainly, I don't see anything, once again, from Jason's sign that says, we were here before, and I was told last time that Jason had looked at these and they're okay, and that it wasn't the fact. So I was pretty clear, I thought, at our last meeting we had at the DPW, that I'd like to see, literally, Jason signed off on this before we move forward. That's...
As I remember, we wanted something from writing or him in person.
Yes.
So that one or the other, we knew that it was coming from him, that DPW had no...
So why isn't he here?
I sent an email Thursday, asking Jason, there's a copy of the email, if he had any issues with the attached poll petition out for Adams Road. We're discussing this Monday, November 6th at 6:35, and I included the poll petition, and I had no response. Or I received no response, I should say.
Once again, we do have a meeting next week, I believe, with the DPW Commission.
Yep, we could do that.
Do it then and confirm. I just, we did this last time, got there and he hadn't heard of it. Obviously, he knows about this is going on, but I don't like that we haven't got something back from him signed. I could ask, Andrew or Faye, you guys could go directly with it to him and ask him to sign it, but I thought we were pretty explicit. I wanted to see it, anyways, before I do it.
Take the responsibility for not having a signature on it.
Quick question, Rich. Just to better understand your past procedure, or even this current procedure, when you went out to see it with him,
Yes.
was that before or after this was submitted to the clerk's office?
I think it was before. I didn't wanna make a move without him.
Well, that's what I
This
thought.
time- This time.
So, I guess what I'm suggesting is, when you do things like this with him, if you have something like this with you, and he says it's good, if you could just have him sign right on this thing that you submit to the town clerk, it's a done deal.
Right. Well, I created this after.
Okay,
In the
all right.
office.
Understood. I'm just trying to think of a
Yeah.
way so we quit running into this, and because I don't mean
Yeah.
to drag you along either,
I
so.
mean, in some towns and hearings that I go to, sometimes the DPW people are present, sometimes they're not, so, I mean, I thought I took care of it by meeting him at the site and spending some time there looking. I wanted to be sure he could see all the stake locations.
I'd hope that they are all right now in good, but just to be prudent, we meet, two Mondays a month. Myself and Matt at least are full-time jobs out of town and not around to have these discussions, so the only way we can verify and do our diligence is to make sure it's signed off on. It's not something I'd go get a signature for.
Well,
I'm frustrated as you are that
I-
that it's not, but we can certainly do it next Monday at his DPW. He will be there for that. Or of course, this could even be visited by the administrator tomorrow. He can visit him and see about him signing it and make sure this is straight. But
Can you accept it pending notification?
Well, there's three of us here. I've said it also before, I don't like doing that. We've been making it a habit of accepting things pending approval and pending things. And had we done this with this would have been 2.5 months ago, pending approval. Things need to come here prepared ahead of time, and the more we accept and let people get things fixed afterwards, the more it brings people in the office in exactly the same situation, not prepared.
Well,
That's my opinion, but there's two other selectmen here that may differ.
I mean, I would expect that there would have been enough time to, make some communication with the DPW chief, and that's why I went out with him early in the process.
I would have thought there should have been enough time to have that signature as well. We just don't.
Okay.
That's not something either
This is,
that the board does.
Do we have, just to clarify, I'm sorry, Charlie.
Yeah, that's okay.
Do we have any type of procedure on this actually written down on how we would like things submitted, how we would act on it?
No.
I'd like to do that.
Yes.
And I would like to include in that something that identifies how the DPW superintendent will sign off on something prior to it coming to us. And that way, whether it's National Grid or any other individual coming before us with similar proposal that we actually have to approve, they know what we're looking for and also our corresponding members of the town also know what we need to do to support that request.
I assume-
Because it hasn't, we've talked about it, but we really haven't put it into writing.
Right.
And I think if we do that, and then we just make sure that anybody comes to submit something, they know this is the process, this is what we do, maybe we can make it clearer, because I do believe there was a history that we're kind of trying to clean up a little bit when it comes to just making sure all the communications and steps were taken. That is different than what we had, I mean, it's different than what we're asking now. So we're not, I don't like the idea of dragging him along for one more chance while we figure out how to get it right.
Does he have to attend that meeting Monday, or is he accepted that he's attended today and submitted that we can?
It may be hitting a certain point where he's running into the engineering and approval process where it's gonna be much harder for them to install it come whatever the weather. So, I mean, we are hitting a certain point where the drag on is a delay that is building up.
Well, I don't think my managers would probably want me to come to another meeting if it would be,
Avoided.
if this could be ironed out in a week, but I will report to them that we're waiting for written approval.
Okay.
That's
From the
Yeah.
DPW chief, I think that's appropriate.
And I would assume we will get that Monday, and then we can sign and approve the petition Monday night.
Yeah.
And I don't, listen, I don't think we have to drag you back out for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we,
Okay.
I wanna follow through with with what we've agreed to do, and as he said, start, perhaps put a policy in place, so this is documented, in clearer for everybody, because I think a lot of the things that people come forward is unclear. And part of the new website, it
Start
will
working.
address things, and people can see
One at a time.
the steps they need to do. There's a lot of things there's a lot of change going on in town, but this is something that I think is pretty important. So everyone has a chance to understand what's being done and why, and the process is the same for everybody.
Okay.
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 Thank you for your time on this.
And thank you for hearing.
I'm sorry it's not
And I
ready.
appreciate that for your putting in, Rich,
Frustrating
and
for me
working
as
with
well.
us.
Okay. Okay, now we have some minutes that are ready.
But outside of his opinion, I don't see any issues with what I'm seeing
Yeah,
here,
I
so.
No, it looks like we overcome the major obstacle, which is that about on the other side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, we have minutes to approve from meeting of Wednesday, May 17th, and
Looks like June 12th.
Monday, June 12th, 2017, and October 16th. Okay. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes for May 17th, 2017, June 12th, 2017, and October 16th, 2017, as presented here.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'm gonna send it back here. I second it.
Okay, discussion, errors, omissions, or anything else? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote in favor.
Aye.
Done. At this point, we have the floor open to the public if they wish to make any comments on anything before we start into the main body of the meeting. Anybody? Okay.
Excuse me.
Yep,
Yeah, I do have a question.
okay.
Some time ago, there was a good-sized article in the newspaper that the state police and the Barry police were investigating some theoretical wrongdoings or right doings, or they were investigating something. And I remember speaking to you, Charlie, in
Mhm.
regards to this outside, that if it's true, whatever they were investigating, then we should probably get some sort of an idea but from what I understand, it's not accurate, or there's something not appropriate. And it has never been disclosed that maybe an error was made. And this weight on the town of Barry is bothering me as a resident, and I'm sure it bothers other people who want to come into town, wondering why there was such an issue that they spoke about both police departments, and there's never been there has never been an article refuting that, or discussing that, or stating that there was an error. And nobody knows what it was or what it wasn't, but it just, this bad taste that's in the town of Barry because of this article is bothersome to me and bothersome to others, and I don't know what the selectmen have to say about this.
Okay, I can address that if you want.
Thank you.
There is, as far as we know, an ongoing investigation into some appropriate issues related to vis-a-vis computer issues. We're not saying anything has been done wrong or if there was any knowingly any alleged legal violations or anything like that, but it is still ongoing. It's being conducted by the state police and the Barry police, and that's about all I can tell you because I do not get into the police investigations, and it's still ongoing as far as I know. And when we get resolution on it, we will make the announcement at the time. We're not sure if anything was done inappropriately, but it is being investigated, and it's a fairly complicated issue from what I understand.
So in other words, this aura of bad taste is still hovering around Barry.
I don't know if you call it bad taste, but it depends on how you look at it, I guess.
I guess I'm more concerned about the negative feeling
Yeah.
of the town that I've been in for 40 years. Well, I guess I must be old, huh? But, so that's what I'm concerned about, the negative of the concern of others to say, what's going on in Barry? You never hear anything, and then when you hear something, it's bad.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's always bad, but there's not much other than that I can tell you, and you know, I guess you can construe it to be an aura of bad taste or an aura of good taste, and that somebody picked something up that they thought should be looked at. You can look at it that way too, if you want to. We're not alleging anything that's done wrong, or
No,
it
I was
didn't
hoping
warrant.
I was hoping that they would
Well,
say
I'd
that
like
was a
to-
big
yeah.
mistake, and Barry's a nice place to live. That's
Yeah,
where
I think
was
it's
coming
still
from.
regardless, it's a nice place to live. And I think everyone sitting here can agree on that, probably. It is a nice place to live.
Yeah, it is.
So, that's about all I can tell you, Sam, which wasn't much, but that's just the way police investigations are. It'd be highly unethical for one of us to go into the middle of a investigation.
Oh, no, it's not. It's not the investigation.
Yeah,
It's the sense of confusion in the town.
yeah,
That no press is willing to say that it all turned out positively. It's heavy, as far as I can see. It's
Mhm.
heavy on the mood of the town, that's
Yeah.
all. But I'm not expecting you to respond as to what it was or what it wasn't. I just would like to open this up to find out what is going on. And from what you
Mhm.
tell me, some sort of unknown investigation that we know nothing about.
right, okay.
Huh?
Yep.
Good response.
It's incomplete. The investigation's not over, and when that's the case, the police don't tell you anything.
Or us. We have no further.
Well, that's what I
I
mean.
mean,
You
Yeah.
meaning,
Yeah.
they don't tell. So
Us collectively.
that's what I understand. I have not been given anything different.
Confident when it's concluded, we will all know.
Yep. Okay. Is there anything else? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into old business. One thing that I had asked to be placed on the agenda, and I brought it up earlier in the calendar year, was the town's 250th anniversary in 2024. And I didn't know if the committee, the board had any time to think about this and what you wanted to do. Traditionally, we set up in the past, the town has set up a committee and we asked them to take a look at the possible options we have related to a celebration. There's a lot of planning that goes into this because there's a lot more than just a parade. And not that far down the road, so I don't know what the pleasures of the board is, if you want to just keep it held or you want to move forward on this, or...
I'd love to see an all-out fest down the fairgrounds again, like we used to do. I'd like to see a berry fair, I'd like to see the horse pulls, tractor pulls, vegetable contests, everything.
Mm-hmm.
See it all down there again, get some vendors out there and get stuff for the kids to do, and I'd really like to have a good day of it.
Yeah.
Make use of the grounds and get people out together.
Guess,
Which may mean forming a committee to work on it. If we want to do that, it's gonna be involved.
I agree. I think it would be good to get a committee together. I do think that we would want to make sure I'm not sure how much they need to be a part of the committee, but the committee needs to know that they have to, from the early get-go, involve them would be our public safety. So the whole figuring out how to deal with streets and other things, kind of like what we did with the Halloween event.
Yeah.
But this, I do think, could be as big, if not bigger. So it may actually take a little more pre-planning with some of those departments. Right now, we're talking 7 years out. I'm trying to figure out how much a committee could really do with estimating what 7 years will be from now and where we're at.
The tough part is under municipal finance law, they can't start raising funds until they're 5 years away.
Okay. So,
First 2 years would basically be create the agenda, figure out what to do, figure out how they're gonna raise funds. And then kind of the next 5 years is drumming up the interest.
We can certainly discuss now things in the time coming up to it, that we'd like some of the ideas I threw out, the things to do down there. I'd like, more thought and involvement for kids. There's a lot of things to go see when they do a tractor pull with it, or they do, I don't know if a horse, if much in the arena for the horses at that time fits, because it takes up a lot of space with trailers and things. I don't remember if that was traditionally part of the fair, but there were always some vendors there. The fire department, I know a couple of times we set up some knockdown targets for kids so they could use the booster line and things that they can actually get involved in. They used to have a frog jumping contest. I don't know how
I remember hearing
what kind of
about that.
participation we get, but certainly the vegetable growing, a pumpkin contest of different vegetables and things that they did inside the building down there. But I'd like to, come up and think of something else for kids to do to get them more involved in it.
how, are you looking to have this done, like, right on or right at that, like with the weekend closest to, like, June 17th, that type of thing? Or just sometime that year and we'll just choose?
Well, it'd be, in the past, the way it's been, is there have been events scheduled throughout the year.
Okay, I got you.
Commemorated, and it culminates in the big parade in the center of town, and through the center. And usually it's, in the past, it started at the high school, came all the way up through and ended at Ruggles Lane. I mean, it's a big event. I mean, we're talking a lot of people. I mean, I can remember, I think the 200th was a little bigger. Claire,
Yeah,
we're talking tens of thousands of
Yeah.
people.
yeah.
I mean,
It's big.
you have no idea how many people, it's just incredible, the number. And it takes a lot of planning way ahead because certain things have to be booked in. And, you know, I know quite often people have said things like the Clydesdales, well, those are booked out like 6, 7 years ahead.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know, somebody had mentioned to me, well, geez, it's too bad you can't have like the UMass band, which has 320 pieces to it, and they're booked out. You know, you're working against the football, and you're working against, they're in the Rose Bowl parade this year, and this and that, and inauguration, so they're booked way out ahead, some of these groups, so that was my thinking on it. And there's other events that go on, and I know in the past we had some of the towns in Barry's had a fireman's muster that went with it, and we've had fire parades here in town, and then there've been just different events all through the year. Some more geared towards adults, some geared towards younger people. It just very involving. It's a nice thing to do for this town too. It builds a community spirit that, you know, it's a once a generation type thing is the way I look at it. And it's a wonderful experience to be living here and have it, but it takes a lot of planning.
Something I've seen up in Maine, of all places, and the chief, his eyes are light up for years, this. They have go-karts that people decorate. They have a section of the parade that's go-karts
Yeah.
decorated. And different places put on I'm sure Higgins would have no problem putting a go-kart out there. But they decorate them, they do some, I think the Lions Club up there does it, and they have like 8 of them, and they do patterns and drive around little
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah,
But
there's
there's enough
one-
time to think about it if we wanted to do some sort of thing where the communities could put a vehicle in like a float or do a go-kart in it and do a little go-kart parade as part of it. And that gets people excited to get involved.
Yeah.
Of course, that brings up the whole issue of driving go-karts in the street, closing the roads down. I mean, that throws a lot into the public safety court for it, but,
So do we want,
and now he comes back in. Good thing you missed that.
do we wanna write up a charge? Something
I
that
thought
comes
about
up
that,
with- Come
yeah.
up with ideas, come up with like a draft schedule or what, you know, just skeletal type concept here and just say,
Your best
Build
bet is
off
to
it.
probably appoint the committee and then have them kind of be the point. And I would say kind of like the individual boards of selectmen might want to go to their meetings and kind of pitch the ideas,
Yeah, that was my thought.
rather than the board of selectmen kind of telling them what to do.
oh yeah,
So-
no,
Yeah.
I meant more just to have a charge
Yeah.
that they have something to stand on saying, yes, I was actually asked to do this for the town.
Yep.
Very generic, I don't know what, 4 lines, like,
Yeah.
do this and don't hurt anybody doing it, otherwise we
So you-
don't agree that you were ever in the room. So maybe we should draft that and put it out. I don't know what size of a committee you think this should be. Is this like a 9-member committee where you can get more outreach from them, or is 9 members now make it so convoluted you don't get anything done because you're always,
I think there's gonna be
Too
a
hard.
lot of tasks, so we might need a decent-sized committee so people can, you know, assign tasks and work on
Yeah,
things.
that's what I see too.
Nine's probably a good number.
Yeah, and I think you know, it'll kind of take its own course, but as I recall, you know, we've looked at it, you have like certain aspects of it are historical, and you look at different things that happened in the town over the 200 and whatever years, and, you know, you have certain things that were landmark, things that affected the country, you know, like Shays' Rebellion and reenactments and different things like that, and then you have the arts, and then you have this, and there's all kinds of stuff going on.
so it's a whole bunch of different niches that all work together.
That's right. In the schools,
The committee may be something we want to really try to choose carefully, and perhaps think about who we might want on and invite
Yep.
some people to join that committee, to try to get input from in different
Yep,
aspects.
Claire?
I would recommend Lucy Allen.
Excuse me?
I would recommend Lucy Allen,
Yeah. Oh, I think we have,
you know,
yeah,
because she's like a historian for the town.
And that's what I mean, we need to reach
Yeah.
out to people that
You
we
need-
like in the committee and ask them,
Yeah.
rather than just say we want to form a committee and look for volunteers.
Yeah.
We should invite people to join that we would really like to be involved. It's a commitment for long-term.
yeah, and it's long-term. And, you know, we had things going on with the different churches as they came in, and certain festivities at the different churches in town before. And there's a lot to it, actually, when you think about the different groups that played into the history of the town.
And I'd like to let any group that wants to do something to probably get into it.
Yep.
The more participation we have, the better.
Yeah,
I agree. I think something like this also would be worth, once again, reaching out to the business community of Barry, or even individuals within that community that have, I mean, we all know the experience that the Stevens Farms had with big events, so they have something to bring to the table, whether they want to or not. I mean, they also got a lot of their own personal
yeah,
responsibilities, so I don't know how much they can give or would give, but these are just different. So I agree, we could make a request, see if you'd like to be a part of it, see what role you wanna do, and then, you know, it starts out slow and then builds up fast, so
It'll
like
build
you're
up.
saying, and the first year it'll be like, oh, we met 3 times, and all of a sudden it's like we're
Yeah.
running out of time.
that's
So-
exactly, yeah, that's the way it works. But, yeah.
So do we want to start with accepting applications, but also we can reach out individually and see if we can get other people to apply, and then sit down and say, yes, of the people we've received applications, we'd like to have you. How would you like to start that?
What do you think, Andrew?
I'd say, first of all, right at the charge.
It's gonna
Once you
Okay.
get the, once you get the charge all
Get that
set,
done
you figure,
first.
we can kind of figure out, you know, try to, you know, solicit some interest and see what we kind of get back for responses, but reach out to people that you think would be good for it and ask them to put in.
Mm-hmm.
And the charge to that point, probably just that we're looking for members of the committee
Yeah,
to help plan and execute 250 celebration for the town. Give a rough guideline of the dates we're looking at and a rough idea of what things, you know, we want to have a parade, we want to have other types of events to be determined, and not limit anything too much at that point, so they can
Mhm.
really, you know, let their imaginations go. And
Yeah, the first year is gonna be the committee will just be figuring everything out. So it'll
Right.
be the
gonna
schedule,
work.
how they're gonna raise money, all that stuff. And then once then it's gonna be reaching out, raising the funds, booking things in advance. You know, it's gonna take them 5 years to do it, but.
So
Especially some of the
that
events.
would kind of be the charge is a 9-member committee, develop and, how do you really wanna word that?
So
Like,
develop a schedule of events for the commemoration of the 250th anniversary. To include a parade, a celebration, and events throughout the year, so, you know,
yeah.
to basically commemorate
And-
that
and to
250th anniversary.
to include
we
fundraising.
want to try to have the charge
To
written up,
include
say
cost
like,
estimating and fundraising.
yeah,
You know, we're looking for members that might actually be able to contribute. This is what it might cost you to do.
Right.
And this
yeah,
will-
and there's, you know, it may not be as bad as you think, because as I recall before, we got, you know, historical grants from this different groups, would put them out, you know, state agencies and other nonprofits have things that are going on with this. There's quite a bit to research on it, so I was thinking maybe have the charge prepared.
I think the average cost is usually around $80,000 to $100,000 to put on this type of event, even just the parade itself, because of the amount of, you know, there's fees. You know, each kind of outside group that comes in, they need some sort of compensation to actually come in to
I gotcha.
to march in like the,
Yeah, if it's
say,
just
UMass
traveling
Clydesdale,
expense or
UMass
something.
band. They're not just gonna come and go, oh, you're having a parade, we're gonna show up.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know how they handle it.
So,
Okay. Do we wanna ask the town administrator if he'd be willing to draft that charge, or
Yeah,
do
maybe.
one of us wanna draft it up and just see if it works?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll draft something up, I'll email it to you guys, we can talk about it
Yeah,
at the next meeting.
okay.
Okay. That's good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have the request from the Grace Reformation Bible Church to extend the use of town property. Okay, come on up, come on down, or whatever. Come into the hot seat.
Everybody?
Good to see you, good evening.
Okay, maybe if you could just give us a quick background as to how things are going. We haven't heard anything.
That's good. Well, I guess that's good.
That is
From
good.
our perspective, it's been wonderful. We are very grateful. In fact, on behalf of the congregation, we want to thank the town of Barry because we were really stuck without your help. And so the building has provided a very suitable, or more than suitable place to worship. And we've had no difficulties whatsoever. I say that, and then I only present one challenge we've had, and I don't know if any of you have been able to hear about it before tonight. It was an initial request, and I'm gonna ask for it again. The moving in of all the stuff is a challenge, especially as the bad weather's coming. We've had a few rainy Sundays that's presented a challenge. And we've done a little bit of our own research in the building on that first floor. And a request tonight to you would be that we would be able to store 3 long plastic tables underneath the stage. It's empty, and there are false doors
Mhm.
that pop right off. That would be a huge help. And then, as you know, when you face the building, it's only the left door that's functioning. That's how you enter the building now. Well, on the other side, if you were able to go into that door, and you can access this from the inside, obviously, to that left, that stairwell that goes upstairs. Underneath that stairwell is a closet. And the best we can see, there's 3 empty trash containers in it. They're cabled together for some reason. I'm assuming they may use them outside it for certain events.
Hmm.
But there's a thin 1/4-inch cable wrapped in plastic that connects the 3 containers. I don't see why those couldn't be stored upstairs or something, because I don't think they're used much, but this would be questions for your janitor, or for whoever's in charge of that. If we would be willing to incur any costs, if we're not so concerned with securing it super well, but even a small padlock to deter curiosity, folks that might be curious. We would be able to store things like hymnals, a little bit of cheap sound equipment, things that we're not overly concerned with, but having to move them in and out every week is a bit of a struggle. So if a little padlock could be put on, we would do the work, we would pay for it, whatever the case, if we could gain that closet while we're renting. I didn't bring that up. I meant to bring this up a week or so in advance so you guys could maybe do some investigating. I did speak to Faye today, and I don't know who's been notified, but that would be our only request, and we'd love to continue to rent there, as long as you'd have us. We have not been able to find a place suitable like that, so.
Okay. Board members?
I took the opportunity to stop in and visit them one Sunday. It seemed like a nice group, very respectful using the building and, spending time together, having a meal together. And it was just nice to stop in and meet some people. And I'd have no problems that, we have that space that's not utilized. I don't know why there would be any issue with that. I don't think there is. But.
Okay. Matt?
I have no problem with probably finding another place for those barrels and working with the closet, using the understage storage. It'll be kind of the caveat of we're not liable for any security of any of that or the protection of, and it'll be up to you to label it so that you know it's yours and somebody else doesn't say it's theirs.
Right, right.
But when it comes to the closet and the padlock, because it's a historical building, we may want to look at another means and methods of securing that.
Yeah.
That doesn't look like a padlock or kind of not fit with the rest of the
Right.
architectural look
Right.
of the building. I don't know what we have for a lock, if it's like an old, never work again skeleton key type doorknob, I don't know. But we may
Yeah.
want to look at that, and
Yeah.
if you know a locksmith that's willing to make an old lock work, if we have an old lock that works,
Yeah,
I don't see a problem with us possibly,
I'm not sure if there's even a lock on that door.
see, I'm not sure either.
I think
Andrew
it's
was
just,
down there today.
Yeah, I took a
It's one of
swing in
those-
real quick just to take a look to see what it looked like, but, yeah, it's just kind of like a bare knob
Yeah.
handle with no lock on it, so we might be hard pressed to try to refit it without just, basically putting a padlock or something on it, or maybe just a,
The old type of hardware is still available.
It is.
So it may be, if.
It might be
if
better
something's
to
done, it might be able to get some of this.
Put
more
a
fitting.
cabinet in there that you can lock separately inside it,
That's a good idea.
and then we just put it behind the door and we don't see the cabinet.
sure. Yeah, we're willing to look, work with however we need to with you guys. I'm just thinking the door that the public uses now to get in the building, that staircase is where the janitor has a closet on that side underneath. I
Mhm.
believe there's just a cheap clasp and padlock on that one. So I don't think we would be doing anything that's not already been done
Okay,
to the building. But you can check, because
okay,
we don't wanna degrade the building.
right.
And actually, as someone who grew up in the town and still lives here, I don't wanna see the building degraded
Right.
either.
Okay, Claire?
What building is this, Charlie?
Town Hall.
So you're saying if I'm facing the building from outside, the closet you're speaking of is on the right? That's the
Mhm.
door that we
Right.
don't use?
Mhm.
Right, and
Mhm.
its only access now is from inside.
Going around?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, I just would wanna pursue alternatives first, rather than just putting a padlock on it. But I also understand if we have a padlock on the other,
yeah, and I think there's another door too that has a padlock where the electrical panel is.
Yeah, those are like bifold doors, right?
Right, and I think
Yeah.
there was a padlock in between us, so I think that any door that we've restricted access to in that building is use the padlock unless it's got a key.
then I guess I just
Maybe we
keep
can
it to a
touch base with-
surface mount thing, so we can always just patch a screw hole.
We can touch base with Keola and see maybe if they could swap out the handle with a locking handle with a master key.
Yeah, the only concern I have with that is then, you know how the key system works.
Right.
If we gave him a key, like a town hall key with that door key,
Mm-hmm.
well, every town hall key would have to be different for the other groups then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Maybe
mean,
secondary, I'm just thinking of secondary.
yeah, we can work on something, we'll
Yeah,
try to
let's see what
figure
we can
something
work
out.
out,
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I didn't bring this up because I'm pretty sure I know where you stand on this, but upstairs, there are closets already with padlocks on them.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't think it was my understanding you didn't want anybody going up and down those stairs. But we'd be more than willing to put the stuff up in one of those empty closets. And just have a couple designated people bringing the stuff down.
Let's see what we can work out here, and if we can't, then we'll go to that'll be the next thing, okay?
Okay.
I'm sure we can figure something out.
I would think
Yeah.
we should be able to do something that looks reasonable,
Okay.
especially if it's already done in other doors. But I'd like to try to see if we can get a lock set instead of just a non-locking set for
Yeah.
us, which may be very simple. Maybe.
Didn't have a lot of time to research this, it was just a quick investigation today, so.
Mhm.
Minor
Yeah,
issue,
we'll work
but-
on it,
Yeah.
All right.
we'll touch
Sounds good.
base.
Very good.
Okay,
Okay?
Oh,
Thank you.
so, the other part of this is, when you guys originally granted his
Yep.
town hall use, it was until this period of time.
Yeah,
Yes.
the 15th, I think.
Yep,
December 2nd, we have the Christmas and Berry event, I believe.
we have a bunch of events coming up in town hall.
And I'm not quite sure how many of those are gonna land on the Sundays that they've been using them.
Mm,
So that was one of the reasons we said we needed to revisit it now, because I
Yeah.
know the schedule's gonna get a little hairy.
I was contacted, and I feel bad I forgot her name, but I was contacted by somebody already who's in charge of this Christmas stuff.
Chorus?
no, there's
Sharon?
about
No, the
15
Christmas
different
and
people.
Dairy Committee.
Maybe it
Yeah,
is.
well, anyway.
And she was already trying to coordinate with us the use of the building.
Okay.
And at least her, who she's representing, they don't use the building on Sunday, it's Saturday.
Right.
And her only concern was she leaves so much of the decorations up, and was that gonna be an issue for us?
Well, that's more what I meant, the
Yeah.
coordination, because I thought Sunday was like the cleanup day,
Yeah,
so.
and we worked it out, at least temporarily, there wasn't an issue in our initial discussion. Because the things that were left are some lights and garland, and that won't affect us,
Okay.
so. But we are gonna talk again, and I feel bad I forgot her name. But
So, I mean, that's really the biggest thing I have with this, is just knowing that we have events that get booked, and some events got booked in the spring for the winter, and so I'm not even remembering what dates were booked.
Sure.
And someone else, you have a calendar, right, that you keep
Yeah.
all that on us?
And I think that's why I had connected them, to try to make
Okay.
sure that we can have everybody on the same page, that we have a lot of groups that are gonna try to use the building, you know, coming up. 'Cause
Yeah.
the winter's when it's really busy, so,
Mhm.
and I think we can all make it work.
So what hours you pretty strict in your hours now? Have you got them figured out pretty well when you're coming and going on Sunday?
yeah, so the earliest we're getting there is 9 for about a 45-minute setup time, and then services from 10 to 12, and then we have not been any later than about 2 o'clock, but we had originally asked for 4, just in case.
Mhm.
Well, that's why I'm asking, if we did have groups that did want to utilize it, there would still be some time available on Sunday, later in the day, if people wanted to. I'm just saying, it doesn't take the building out for other groups that might want to use it for something, Sunday evening. So I think Sunday early is out, but Sunday evening would still be available.
Sure.
And, if folks from Saturday want to come in early Sunday morning and clean up some instead of Saturday, they could still do that as well. I don't see any other conflicts, I don't think.
Nope,
Okay.
I think if you guys, wish to allow them to continue using, you should
Mhm.
make a motion to
Yeah, we'll
continue
need
it
that.
till whatever you so choose.
I'd like to make a motion to allow them to continue through the month of January and then revisit again. But part of that revisit also is, what I'm hoping to hear from you is your experience through the winter time in January, so we understand the coordination between the tenant, the facility operations, things like that. Just get an idea of what you notice as being a regular weekly user of that space. You can come back before us at the end of January, let us know. And at that time, we both can say, can we or can't we address some things that you either realize by being that tenant, or vice versa, do you still want to be the tenant?
Sure.
Without saying it ends then, I'm just saying, come back before us,
Yeah,
revisit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, visit us at the end of January, but we'll still give it to you till
Do you want to leave it?
February 15th, so again, visit 2 weeks prior to the end of the approved.
Sure.
And then maybe just look at it quarterly, is what I'm thinking moving forward. Just kind of give it this revisit, because it's a hard building to really say, okay, you can have it for a year, and then realize other
Yeah, no,
things
it's
come
right.
before us, and we're like, we
Right.
put ourselves in a corner.
Yeah.
It sounds very reasonable.
Yeah.
And plus, we could also visit, we said we haven't asked you for any donations yet, but we chance to visit what happens with fuel oil and see if there is any cost change. I'm sure it'd be trivial if there is, but at that point, we might say, okay, something towards the heat bill. I don't know, we'll have a
Well-
traditional number what it
Right.
costs and see if it does.
Right now, they're
bump up.
making $50
Yeah.
every week. Every use, they're leaving a check, which, thank you, I get them every week.
I
Okay.
didn't expect that, well, then I will take that away then, that's more than I expected at this point, thank you.
So the motion is, I gotta rephrase it because of the way I put it doesn't land with a regular Board of Selectmen meeting. The motion is to revisit the board the first meeting in February, yet you have the rest of the February to continue to use the space, and that gives us time to meet, and if things don't work out, you've got a month to find a new location if for some reason it comes up that way.
That's perfect.
That's not what I'm looking to do, it's just trying to give us all the
That's
time in
wise.
case it does happen that way,
No,
we
that's
have
very
planned.
wise, yeah.
So,
Okay, do I
that's
have
the
a-
motion.
Do I have a second?
And I second the motion, yep.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Alright, on the previous discussion, I make a motion that he can use the storage space he requested, but if there is any cost associated with providing security to that closet, that they would have to cover the cost.
And that we're not liable for any of the things they store.
Correct.
Right.
That's, I'm second with that motion.
Okay. And that was a motion?
Yes, a second.
Okay, and second? Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. In favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. So I think we're all set for tonight. Thank you.
Get your storage and we'll see you in a couple months.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
I'll stop in again someday, but.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah,
Thank you.
talk soon, okay?
Okay.
Okay. We have the classification plan. Is the assessors coming for that? Yeah, I assume that's for the tax classification.
This was something that you had brought forward for,
Okay.
The personnel,
you want to look at
Yes.
the personnel
Oh,
classification.
okay. Okay, I'm on the wrong. Sorry.
That'll be next meeting.
What?
We'll do that classification plan for next meeting.
Yeah, that was my,
I don't think it's a page for that, it was just.
yeah. Maybe I'll find it, damn thing. Okay, I'll turn this as the personnel person, Andrew, I'll turn this over to you.
Basically, I didn't have anything prepared for this. You had just asked that we have a discussion about, about the current classification plan of personnel and whether or not we need to look at any changes to that.
Right, I know we'd had requests from different departments and different people, and did we want to pursue this? And I guess when we had a discussion about setting up the agenda, I thought if we were gonna look at some positions, then we should look at probably all the different positions and make sure they're up to date in terms of pay and what the expectation for the position is. And that's what brings us in here tonight, because we did have some requests for upgrade, and I felt it was reasonable, and
Is that something we need to go with the administrative department head by department head to look at theirs?
Yeah.
Individually and bring them in front of the board when they're ready?
Yep, and Andrew as our personnel administrator, I guess that would be the reasonable way to start, would be to go to the department heads and,
Yeah, that's fine. I can reach out to each department head, try to get a sense of how they, if they think that changes need to be made, try to get a full thing together and then present it to the board.
Mhm.
Right, so you get their input on their positions
Yeah.
and the duties to those positions, make sure they kind of line up.
Right, yeah, we'll take what our current, we'll kind of look at what our current job descriptions are, match them up, and then put them up against the personnel policy to make sure that they line up with basically what the job descriptions are to what the pay rates are. So,
could you also look at acquiring the classification plans or pay scales by position that our local towns also have?
yes, so.
Pretty much any town that abuts, I don't wanna go crazy beyond that, just if it abuts Berry, it's worth looking at.
I did have the Collins Center reach out to me. They're doing a classification review for three towns, and I know that Princeton was one of them, and I think maybe Sterling. I can't think of the three off the top of my head, but they looked at Cambridge being a comparable community. I asked them to provide me with the results of that survey, so we should have at least 3 comparable ones, but then I'll take the abutting ones too and add it in. So.
Yeah, I would appreciate that,
Yeah.
because what they consider comparable, I don't necessarily consider comparable,
Right.
because it's a whole different region of the state. Just because
Yeah.
it's a similar population size doesn't work for me.
Yeah, that's
Personal
fine.
opinion, I'm just,
Yeah.
Sterling's a very
You know,
different
honest.
town.
Yeah, we'll look at all the metrics on that and compare
Okay.
it, so.
so, thank you.
Okay. Okay, we have the fire inspector's position, which is in our packet for tonight.
So this is the fire inspector, basically the job description that the chief and I had come up with. Basically, we have appointed an individual to this position, and we're just looking for the board to review and approve the job description as presented.
Okay, Matt?
Got one comment, and it kind of relates to what we just spoke of. Where would this fire inspector fall into a classification plan? Right now, it looks like he's either the fire chief or an on-call firefighter, and there's no in between. And so I think it may either need to propose to land in a separate line item on the classification plan.
Right.
Or be identified on this like we do on some of the other job descriptions in the top right where it says
What their classification
this employee falls into this classification category.
Okay. Yeah, this is only the second full-time position within the fire department. And, obviously one that falls underneath the fire chief, so I think it would be one that would be its own separate pay scale, but we'll review that and I'll integrate it in, bring comment for the next meeting.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Did he have a recommendation on pay scale? Starting pay?
Yeah, because you already appointed someone.
Yeah, so
I
they're
think
at
it was,
a
I
rate.
forget the rate,
so,
yeah.
Um,
I feel like it was 22 or
Let me see if I have it right
I think he was putting it similar to the paramedic pay scale,
here.
which would put it like you're saying right around the 22.
something.
Don't get me wrong, based on the job description, he's asking a lot of the employee too, so I'm not necessarily saying it's inappropriate.
I'll be right back. Excuse me.
My initial review, though, generally of the actual description, I had no comment. I thought it was pretty thorough. And covered pretty much the things you want to make sure you cover without getting so detailed that you're limiting the actual use of the employee.
Fortunately, it doesn't seem I have that in my email, but I'll update this, put it in that hub for the next one.
Certainly looks pretty thorough.
So I probably have something hard copy from him from the appointment. The rate he was hired at, that probably says what the classification is, so I think it's just a matter of putting it on paper.
And adding it to the plan.
Yeah, and adding it in.
Right, because if I recall, it's not like, it assigns a rate, but it didn't say it was from this classification at this year, like, did he give you a rate, but he's saying you're already 10 years into a 21-year step classification plan?
Right.
So, probably should just define it.
Yeah.
That's all I mean.
Oh, it's right here, $23.
Yeah.
It was in the minutes that we just approved.
Oh, okay. So we'll look at where that is on the pay rate.
Yeah, certainly the qualifications for this aren't any basic qualification for anyone in town, you know.
It seems very comparable to the deputy police chief versus what he's asking the fire inspector based on the qualifications he written is. Pretty much do almost anything the fire chief can do if he needs you to. Not to that level, but
Right, he's got a lot less
still
command
very
structure
broad.
training, but he's got the basic, he's got the EMT, the typical first responder, firefighter, 1, 2 certs. So it's gonna require certain years of experience and training to get to that point, so it's
he
gonna
also
be-
wrote in there the teaching fire for like doing the school things where you actually get the certificate from the fire academy saying you've been taught to teach at the, that's in here.
Right.
So I mean, you're asking a lot of education for the person to go with just knowledge and experience, so.
He's done that, I think, for all the positions, even when he elected, he appointed new lieutenants, officers and stuff, he made some pretty serious credentials for all of them, so it's a steady change in things, but there's plenty of qualified people that have done this much training, so it's good.
Okay. So do we need to vote on this?
We gotta wait.
Yeah, we're gonna table it till I can
Okay.
provide the
Okay.
wage class.
Okay. All right. We'll move into new business then. We have Attorney Baird wants to speak with the board, I guess, about, come on up, Jim.
Tried to bring the chair with me.
Okay.
Plenty more up here.
Well, I thank you very much
Thank you.
for entertaining my presence tonight. I'm here in sort of a different role than normal. Under our state's ethics statutes, the Conflict of Interest Statute 268A, there are certain things a town elected or appointed employee is required to do if he or she finds themselves in a situation where there either may be the appearance of a conflict or there is a conflict. Siding on the side of caution, I am in a situation where I have been involved with the Worcester County 4-H, and my wife has also for probably some 30, 40 years. And the Worcester County 4-H has a fair that they held for the last 68 years at Camp Marshall in Spencer. Due to some circumstances, they are seeking a new location. And one of the locations that they looked at was the Felton Field in Barry, where there used to be a 4-H fair. It was the Barry 4-H fair. And history tells me that it also was quite an active fairground at one time with horse racing and all kinds of grandstands and things. In any event, their determination and their consideration has been to select the Felton Field site for future Worcester County 4-H fairs. There's been a discussion entered into with the Felton Field Commission, and they've reached a agreement to agree. And my role so far has been to try to stand back as far as I can from being a participant on behalf of the Worcester County 4-H fair, but rather act in my role as town council for the town of Barry. As such, and in order, as I say, to cover my, shall we say, obligations to disclose, I have prepared and am signing and filing with the board, and I will be with the town clerk, a disclosure of a possible financial interest or appearance of possible conflict under section 23B3 of 268A. The appearance is because my wife and I are involved with the Worcester Forest. Neither one of us receives a penny for our involvement. I am on a advisory council. My wife is on the fair committee. She also happens to be the hall superintendent for the fair. And as such, we do not receive any money, just a lot of work. In addition, I want to file a disclosure under 268A, section 19, which in effect tells you, the board, as my appointing authority, that I am in this situation, that I am preparing the documents for the Worcester County 4-H Fair and Felton Field Commission to enter into an agreement for the use of the Felton Field. The agreement provides for initially a 3-year term with ability to add 5-year periods onto that. And am I asking your board's indulgence in determining on page 2 of that section 19 that in fact you find that my involvement is not such as to affect the integrity of my services or the municipality in my involvement with this. I've got the agreement ready. It's going to be presented to the Felton Field Commission tomorrow evening. A representative of the Worcester County 4-H Fair will be present at that meeting tomorrow night, and she is the appointed and employed agent from UMass that acts as an extension agent and other duties with regard to the Worcester County 4-H Fair. So it was probably a fortuitous evening to be here, hearing your consideration and anticipation of the 250th anniversary of the town. If this proceeds with the fair being held at Felton Field, the Worcester County 4-H Fair is anticipating, hopefully, installing some temporary, some semi-permanent, and some permanent structures on the property. They're also hoping to do some interior work on the Joe Patisi Hall, which is the white building. There is some cleanups that need to be done there. It's a big space. It's almost as big as the one that they had at Camp Marshall. It has some work that's been done on it by the Bluegrass group that has a activity there during the summer. It's been painted by them. Some windows have been repaired, the sash replaced, and we're hoping to go forward and do some more with that as far as the Worcester County 4-H Fair is expecting to hopefully do that. But hopefully the fair is a success and continues, and by the year 2024, the fair will be so outrageously successful that it can be a participant and help celebrate the anniversary. I hope that the Barry Gazette, who I see has a representative here this evening, will appropriately report this change of events for the Worcester County 4-H Fair. The owner of the Barry Gazette is already aware of this. He's an acquaintance of my wife, who saw him Sunday morning in church, and he seemed to be excited. So, and I'm sure that there will be an appropriate press release being put together by the Felton Field Commission and the Worcester County 4-H Fair to announce to the world that I think next August there will be a 4-H fair at Felton Field. They're hoping to have a two-weekend involvement. The first weekend would be a horse show, which they have already entered into discussions with the, I don't know their exact name, the Barry.
Riding and Driving Club.
Riding and Driving. And I guess that the Barry Riding and Driving has agreed to add to their events a 4-H category, so that 4-Hers would be able to participate in their events during the year. Also, I guess it's activated some interest among not just horse people in the area, because 4-H has not been as active in this part of Worcester County over the years for some reason. But I guess this is stimulating a lot of interest and activity. And we're hoping to have not just the horse involvement on the first weekend, but the second weekend, which is when the kids bring in all kinds of projects, including large animals, cows, beavers, goats, sheep, chickens, ducks, rabbits, and their projects that they've worked on during the year, sewing, artwork, photography, and everything. So it's a really, I hope to be a really exciting and successful event, and I'm really pleased to be able to participate in it on behalf of the town. And I'm hoping that the town board will allow me to continue to be participating in it, which would require your involvement under Section 19 to indicate that it's okay for me to do that. That's a long-winded way of saying please.
Is that a third? Is that a third form? Or?
No, it's the same one you've got there.
Okay.
You've got the
One of
Section
two.
19.
The conflict
Section
and then the
20
finance.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay.
But on the second page of 19 is where the board would take action if that is within their consideration this evening. And Charlie, I think you were a former 4-H'er.
Yes, I am a former 4-H'er, all the way through up to,
All right, Charlie, you got to fill out one of these in order to vote on this matter because you're a former 4-H'er. I'm just
Is your world
joking.
crazy? Yeah.
I make a motion to accept the disclosure and sign off that there's no, is this right?
No
Yeah, so
reservations.
you got that.
As appointed official as required by GL General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 19, I have reviewed the particular matter and the financial interest identified above by a municipal employee. I have determined that the financial interest is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality may expect from the employee. I agree that that applies to Jim Baird in this case.
okay, do I have a second?
I second that, I also agree.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Oh, yes.
What?
I can't tell you how excited I am to see 4-H come to Barry. This is fantastic. It's
Yeah, I think it's
exactly the
great.
thing this town needs. It's exactly the thing
Yep.
I've been waiting to see, and I'm very, very
Yeah.
thrilled right now. Been trying to hold that back, that's all.
Yeah, and I think the Barry Gazette will probably, knowing the persuasion of the editor, I think will be inclined to,
Sounds like everybody wants it in the Barry Gazette, in case you didn't catch that.
I think you,
This is a great thing. This is
I
something I'm
think,
talking about
Charlie, you
involvement for
become the
kids.
person that actually has the,
This is involvement
yeah,
for kids.
signing.
This is exactly the thing we need to come back to town.
okay.
This
With
is
that, I'll
fantastic.
call for a vote in favor.
Aye,
I thank you all very much.
thank you.
You need
Thanks,
to,
Jim.
I can tell you'll have a place to go, horse riding.
Mhm, I know, I know,
And for less.
I know, I know.
I think we all have to sign this, don't we?
I would think, the way it's worded, it could be signed by you as the chairman, or all three.
What do you wanna do? You
Either
just
way
did all
would be.
your-
Wanna sign? Sure.
Because if you
My
have,
fiance and stepdaughters are dying to get into goats, and this is just gonna open the door for her.
Kids-
we graduated
kids
together.
wise.
Yep, no, it's a good thing.
Young? Oh, maybe the same
Yeah.
age.
Put the barn to use again.
The oldest, maybe that age, the other ones would have been.
Okay, we have our holiday schedule.
Yep, so I provided to you the days that the municipal offices are gonna be closed, for the upcoming holidays. Basically, Wednesday the 22nd, we'll have a half day here. Thursday, November 23rd is Thanksgiving Day, will be closed.
No, to give to Ellen.
Monday, December
We've signed it.
25th is Christmas Day.
You can now take that
July,
and give
or
it to Ellen.
January 1st is New Year's Day. And then I kind of add the caveat to that, you know, people like to take some vacation time this time of the year, so it might impact some of our,
And this is just for our
some of
records.
our office hours. So I've asked that each department just provide me with some, you know, whether or not they're going to be, their holiday schedule is going to be impacting.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Jim, I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
It's gonna, whether or not their holiday schedule is gonna be impacting outside of just these times. I'll let you guys know, but so far, nobody's indicated that they're planning on closing their office other than these 4 days.
Okay.
I'm planning on taking the first half of Wednesday, the 23rd, or 22nd off, because we're hosting Thanksgiving, so, but that's the only time that I have planned.
Excellent.
Okay, do you need a vote on that, or?
Nope, that's just more
Okay.
for your information.
Okay. Town administrator goals, you could,
Yep. So, in accordance with my employment contract, after 90 days, the Board of Selectmen has to set goals for the next 12 months for the town administrator. I didn't come prepared with any goals for you guys, but I figured that this might just be an opportunity to kind of get the ball rolling, whether or not we want to be at the next meeting, an outside meeting, or you know, how you guys want to proceed with
what are
the
the
goal
wishes
setting.
of the board on that?
Be nice to start that with a discussion as to how you found settling in, kind of relationships you've established with department heads, and how you feel things are going as far as that basic foundation before we move forward with
Okay.
more tasks. You could elaborate on that if you'd like.
I feel I'm settling in great. I think that we've made a lot of progress since I've started, especially with improving communications, with just getting everybody on the same page, with setting goals, you know, especially in the financial side. You know, that's really a sector that I've been focusing a lot of time on to make sure that we're really prepared going into next year. But I think that so far, we've seen great progress with just communication from residents to our office to departments, and then from our office out to the select board and back out to residents. I think all around, we're headed in the right direction, and I think the proof is yet to come.
Any issues or obstructions you found that you'd like to address?
As far as issues and obstructions, I think it's all, I think most of it comes down to communication and improving on things. You know, there's some offices I think that we still need to work on, but it's gonna take time. I didn't expect to come in here and solve every problem in 3 months. I think that it's just kind of departmental, you know, department by department buy-in. And I think that we're headed in the right direction, and we're gaining trust every day, as long as we prove that we're on, you know, we're here to support everybody.
The trust I'm sure you build is, my bigger concern is make sure that people are respecting your authority as administrator. You have no issues with that.
I've had no issues.
And trust takes time, I understand that.
I know that early on, it was basically weighed out to some departments when there was a little bit of issues, but I haven't had any issues since. It's been,
Glad to hear it.
Yep.
Very glad to hear it.
Actually completing personnel reviews of all the department heads. I'd like that to be one of your goals to accomplish, and I wouldn't get too worried about, at this point, waiting on anniversary dates. But meet with them, discuss, set up individual department goals that you're asking them to achieve. And then if it's 4 months later is their anniversary date, do a check-in, revisit, and then go to the yearly. But since I've been here, that was one of the things that I think was harder to get to, because one, maybe you talk to the department heads all the time and all this, but it never actually ends up on a review and goes in the file, and then you can that's my understanding. Now, I wasn't the town administrator, I don't know it all, but if I'm correct, Faye, you had mentioned at times that just, we couldn't get to them, the
Yeah.
personnel reviews, so we need to make that kind of a higher priority again to start building on.
I had, at our previous department head meeting last month, I kind of set the, kind of set the stage for that. I let everybody know that the first thing I want to do is meet individually with each department head. I want to discuss what their goals are for the next 6 months, and then in 6 months, sit down again and say, did we achieve our goals, and what can we do mutually to do that, whether or not we're making good progress. I've yet to sit down and do that, but I'm hoping to do that within the next few weeks.
The other thing is, I would also like you to review whether you think doing that on anniversary dates is actually more beneficial, or literally just taking 1 month a year and say, this is the month I hit all the department heads and we review the plan for the year, kind of like, because if you stagger it out by anniversary date, it almost never logically falls into place.
Right, and you're never not doing it too, so it's kind of like you're always on chasing
Right.
one. So I think that historically, from what I've seen, it works out best to kind of do that. At least how I've seen it in the past is done in like June, right before the beginning of the next fiscal year, just because if down the road we decide that we want to incentivize it a little bit, we could possibly put a line item in the budget to say that, based off your performance review, there could be a bonus attached. I'm not recommending that right now, but that's just how I've seen it done in the past.
Okay.
I think one reason why they changed that years ago, because there are a couple departments that have large amounts of employees underneath them.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
think the discussion was, what's the easier way for those larger departments? And the conclusion is the anniversary date. So that's why we went from June or whatever to staggered, just because for those larger departments. I mean,
And-
you're talking, it's probably only at this point the fire department. That's the large department.
Right, but I would also suggest that you tier it, where maybe June is all your department heads.
Right.
And then from June until May of the next year is their goal to get their personnel done. So by the time they visit you in June, they did their job. So, you can either schedule it for them, or you can allow them to kind of schedule it throughout their year, but if they fail to do it, it's part of their review that you failed to do it and make it work with your schedule. So,
And I know there's some kind of nuance to, with the way that some departments are structured, because not all departments report to the administrator. So we have to kind of figure out with some of those who is going to be ultimately responsible for the review, I guess.
correct.
And I would say, as far as picking the times, I think you should pick the time and give them a deadline to schedule, rather than give them, because if you do let them pick their time, they may tend to put it off. So I think if you give them a time to come in, to have those ready for you would be wiser than letting them pick one that way. And that also, you're the one that's gonna go through all of them, so you need to fit your schedule, I think, is more important than filling theirs.
Yeah, I mean,
Then they
it's similar to
go back
us
to me.
doing your review of you, but not getting too worried about how we're providing suggestions for the department head review. But if you come back and say, no, I wanna do it by anniversary date, I'm not gonna say you can't say that, because that's not how we're structured right now in our government. We give you the personnel authority right now. But the recommendation is, it might be easier to just,
I'll have to, I'm gonna have to sit down and put it all on paper. I've just kind of had a chance to briefly go over it, but I think that I'll have to make a policy on how I plan on proceeding and following.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Something I'd suggest is, what we've touched on tonight a bit, is not having some procedures set forth. I'd like to have them work on procedures for certain issues, like when things come before the board, and maybe start to develop policies and/or procedures that we want to follow as a board. He's already done quite a bit of that, I see in the financial stuff. When we talked about this earlier, and we talked about free cash, you know, where should it be, how should we spend it? We need to take some things like he's written in this financial plan, which I like a lot of this, and put these into policy, and for ourselves as guidelines, you know, to make it easier to navigate through some of these things. And maybe we need to consider, as we go, what types of things we'd like him to develop procedures and policies for. Like the poll petition, I think any petition that comes before us, having all the sign-offs done first is important. And we need a way to publicize that as well, so that people coming before the board understand what they need to do.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes it's very unclear. So it helps with transparency for the town in general. If they're gonna come before us, know what to expect before they get here. And when they see someone before us, know what they've gone through before they got here, and not, you know, well, why do they get to go and talk, then I didn't get to talk to them. Just our interaction with the town becomes more clear that way.
I think that the launch of the new website is gonna be a huge
I think so, too.
caveat toward that, because there's just so many things that we can do with that.
Yeah.
As far as opening up transparency and providing the guidelines of how things are done. It's just, it's gonna be a huge improvement. We've kind of already laid, I've spent a lot of time doing back-end development on it, so that way when we do launch, it should all be there. And it's gonna be a huge upgrade.
Mhm.
Of course, something else I've always said, which I know that what we did tonight, is working on things in the common. The Halloween was great. I'm happy to see Felton Field get used. I'd still like to, if you two agree, develop some more events in the common. You know, something in the spring, maybe a flower and plant festival. Maybe we can get local farmers to get starter plants for people for the vegetable gardens, and do something in the spring when we do. I mean, this is still a huge farming community. As Charlie said before, it's more farmland than not. Give the farmers a chance to get involved and put something out there to sell to the public and interact with the public, and maybe, and this is just a thought for Spring Festival, and do something to do with giving people tips on home gardens and fertilizers and things. But I'd like to see, just in general, a task for him is to try to come up with other ideas of how to use the common and involve the people in the common. I mean, it's a beautiful common. It's, to see it used in Halloween was fantastic. And to have it empty so often is really a shame.
I gotcha.
Okay.
I got one thing. It started way back when. I need you to review and then maybe come back to us with a recommendation, but our current personnel policy does not, as written, give anybody paid lunch, but we're not enforcing that at all. I would like to at least revise the personnel policy to properly address how we want to accept it, so that we're not just ignoring something that's not being followed because we just think it's too difficult of a discussion to have. Right now, my personal thought is it's not being followed and it's not correct. And I really don't appreciate anybody that's not following that personnel policy, despite however it was allowed to occur before without actually being enforced appropriately. But that doesn't mean it can't be corrected or revised. There's two things I've seen, one prior, one before, one after, I should say, me actually really getting into it, is if you're gonna take a paid lunch, you gotta stay at your desk. And I kind of mean that a little bit just as strictly as I just said it. You're gonna be at your desk if you're gonna take paid lunch and be working. Otherwise, take the unpaid lunch and go do your thing elsewhere. That's generally my position. I'm not saying that there isn't you gotta look at it and see based on wages and things, is this like a benefit we can offer? Not discounting that, okay? But that's why I'm bringing it up, where I need you to kind of maybe, from your perspective, working with the people you've worked with, you've been here just long enough to get the feel for it, maybe propose to us what you believe is the appropriate application. Because right now, generally my thoughts are paid lunches for public safety and emergency personnel that can't get away from the job. Everything else is about scheduling the personnel to maintain the offices are open where people stagger their lunches. Generally, that would be the policy I would, because as towns grow, now you gotta change that and take it from somebody, because a lot of towns don't pay you for lunch. I mean, when you get into start pushing over that 5,000 limit like we have, you're getting into a point where it starts to add up. It starts to eat up lost time. And secondly, if you're budgeted for so many hours, and then you're getting a paid lunch, you don't get extra hours to work to make that up. Do you follow what I mean? So if you were in from 12 to 3 every day, 7 hours a day, and you weren't getting a paid lunch, but now you're getting a paid lunch, because that lost time in production doesn't mean you can stay to 3:30 or 4 and get paid more because you got a paid lunch to go with your paid hours. And that's where I think, because we haven't addressed it, all these potential things are happening, and you can't track it because we haven't addressed it or applied it evenly across the board. The way the personnel policy currently is stated is you only get a paid leave if it's identified on the classification plan, and no position on the classification plan is identified as such. The only people that do get it are people that actually have it written into their contract, which I believe makes the police covered. And then contractual or salaried people, it doesn't quite apply the same way, because you get paid to get your job done in a way. So I would like to bring that and get it done, rather than just keep it out there. I don't think it's a big deal, but when you have the right recommendation, we can sit and discuss and make a vote on it at that time, but I wouldn't really want to get too deep into it now. I just wanted to explain my history coming to it and why I think it would be a good idea to be done with it.
I agree. If we have policies, they need to be applied equally to everybody. And I don't think necessarily everything has been in the past, and we need to get away from that and get back towards, these are the rules, establish them clearly and follow them. The only caution of that is sometimes that there are laws that apply to lunch breaks and breaks, depending how many hours people work. I'm sure you can reference that. Just make sure, like if somebody's working an hour a day, they have to have a half-hour lunch.
It doesn't say they have to
Well,
be paid or not, just they have to have
right,
half-hour off.
You have to offer them the half hour, right. Normally, traditionally, most places it's not paid. But allowing people, one thing I recall from my college courses way back when in management was that when you allow people to work through and not take that half-hour break, you're really pushing the legality of, did you really offer it, didn't you, are they expected to work or not?
I got you.
You've got to be very clear about it, and if it's supposed to be a lunch break, they take that break. Because the state law is on the employee side of this, and it can be determined by someone that's looking into it that we didn't give it. We've made them feel they must work through their lunch. So we need to be very clear about that and very careful with the legality of that end. So.
That's all. I just want to make it so it's easily understood. Everybody knows what
In the
final
same for
policy
everyone,
says.
just, everyone should be treated the same.
Okay.
I agree with that.
We have the consideration for the financial policies. I assume you just want us to have a review on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just presenting this tonight, so obviously I don't think, everybody,
Okay.
I don't think you're ready to take any formal vote on it, but I just thought I'd present this with the budget.
Yep.
You know, budget sheets are going out in the next few weeks. So I'd like to kind of set the ground rules of how we're going to develop our budget by using this financial management policy.
Okay.
I read through this, not as thoroughly as I could yet, but I did try to read through it. Like most of it, some of the things gave me a little pause, but I want to read it better before I discuss
Right,
it.
and I think that a lot of the, you know, some of the numbers that are in here too are things that I think, you know, I need some direction from the board on, and just might be placeholder for right now, but I think it'll be a huge step forward in kind of how we develop our budget, if we know that we're all on the same page.
As I said earlier, this is exactly what I was hoping to see with you know, guidelines for how we're gonna proceed with free cash, with stabilization fund, and how we're gonna spend money. And I'd like to see rules for this board and future boards to follow it, on how to spend money and how it's used and handled. And that's best done with percentages and dollar amounts and fixed reasons for spending things and time to spend things. So the general document, I like it. I really do. I think we'll probably make minimal changes to it from my perspective, but.
Yeah, I felt probably the one thing that was gonna be the most for conversation was gonna be the recommendation on OPEB funding, because it's really kind of a, you know, it's like one of those things that you have to commit to, but how much do you really wanna commit yourself to? You know, this was wording that I grabbed from another community of how they handle the OPEB funding, but I think given our, you know, it's quite a heavy liability, but do we really want to say to ourselves that every year we're going to add another $10,000 into our budget and commit that to those funding? I mean, it's a pretty lofty goal, but do we want to really put that on paper?
Yeah,
I like the 5,000
Yeah.
better, and I would check with the treasurer because she had a consultant provide
guidelines.
a plan with what we did at last town meeting. We put the 25,000 in was the original investment recommended.
Yep.
And then there was a per year that they said if you can do this, it should meet your needs.
Right, so that's I think I'll have to get that, and if I can put that into the policy rather than just the blanket 10, I think it would be best.
Now, just out of curiosity, when we're putting these funds into that account, as we explained at town meeting, we're going from one account to another, it's still our account. Is that an interest yielding account?
It's supposed to have some yield. It's supposed to be an investment account
Okay.
Yeah.
that's
Just making sure.
safe investment, not,
Right, it's basically protecting your liability, or your retirement, I wanna say your liability
I
to the
understand
people
what
that
it
are
was for,
currently
yeah.
working, for
Yeah.
when they retire and what their post-employment benefits are
Other
going
posts,
to be.
right.
So,
So, yeah, it's,
yeah, so that way you're not just like, well, when they retire, we'll take it out of we'll take it out of
I
our
think-
operational fund. You're basically saying, we're taking that money now, we're putting it away, it's gonna make
So it
money, and
doesn't
then when
bite
they
us
do
in the butt.
retire, they get,
right, so it
they
doesn't
get that
hit
one.
us. But we covered it at annual meeting, and that was a big point of discussion, and Matt suggested the change, because we had originally put a lower dollar amount in just because we didn't have the free cash. I think we were in agreement that we wanted to at least keep up with the recommendation, with the recommended amounts. And, you know, if that's enough, we keep it at the recommended amounts, but I have no problem setting more aside if it doesn't make sense, because like I said, it's still an account for us. But we'll still probably have to address that annually, you know. I think putting in the dollar amount of 10,000 or 5,000 is a good goal, but like we had done this year, when we didn't have free cash, that was gonna take the hit first, to make it later, so I don't want us to put it in stone that we're definitely gonna put that much in.
Yeah, and these OPEB numbers are, you know,
Yeah.
it's such a liability on top of you that, you know, a lot of communities just look at it and go, yeah, right, we're never gonna get there. And so it's the first thing that gets cut, like the state's just kinda looking at you like, okay, yeah, right, we're gonna take $2 million out of our $11 million budget and just put it toward money that we're never gonna see. You know, so a lot of times it is something that,
Putting some aside
Yeah.
annually
But
is
yeah.
smarter than taking a big hit down the road when all that stuff does come due.
I say, so we're not the only community that this is the first year that they ever made an investment in, so if we put it on paper, I think we're headed in the
Well,
right direction.
the meeting
Yeah.
approved it, I think the town understood it and liked it, so.
You're right, it points out that this is something to think about.
I like anything we're doing to plan future instead of kind of flying by the seat of our pants. Nice to see a little pre-planning for everything. That's works much better by design than by happenstance.
Okay. Okay, we
I
have,
promise I will read it more thoroughly before we discuss
Go
it
on.
again, but
And I'll get those
I
numbers from the
did.
treasurer.
go on.
I did go through it briefly, but.
Okay, we have a letter to read. This is the one from John, okay. To the Town of Barry Board of Selectmen, this is dated November 1st. It is regret that I am writing to inform you of my decision to resign from my positions as member of the Common Committee, Public Safety Building Committee, Sewer Commissioner, Chairman of the DPW, and Chairman of the DPW Board effective November 17th, 2017. I am planning to attend the DPW Commission meeting on November 13th, 2017, and the Sewer Commission meeting on November 16th, 2017. It has been a pleasure being a part of these boards. I am so proud of all we have accomplished in the past 20 years, and I have no doubt that the boards will continue these successes in the future. If I can be of any assistance during this transition, please don't hesitate to ask, and it's signed by John D. Pilato, and I can only say that my experience in dealing with John over the years has just been wonderful, and he has done such a good job for the town. And he's made a lot of personal sacrifice, I know, to do these things. I was wondering if we wanted to have some sort of recognition for John at some point.
I think that would be appropriate. He's been such a tremendous asset to this
Yeah,
town.
I mean, he really knows,
It's gonna leave a big void in those committees.
he sure will,
Mm-hmm.
he sure will.
Yep, those are big shoes to fill.
So, I would think, you know, at first I thought, well, maybe the town meeting, but then that's just next week.
Yep.
I don't know if we could get something together in that period of time.
Why don't you guys shoot some ideas over to Andrew and I, and then maybe
Okay.
we can work on something.
Okay. Okay. And we have a note here, a memo from the planning board. At the planning board meeting held on October 17th, 2017, the board voted to recommend to the Board of Selectmen the appointment of Kurt Wells from associate member to full member to fill the seat of John O'Leary. And we don't have to vote on that, do we? No.
If it's an appointment, you do. You're the
It's,
appointing authority.
we're
Yeah, it's
appointing in lieu of an
appointing to
election,
fill out
so-
a term, right? Okay,
I make a motion to appoint Kurt Wells as a full-time member to fill the position of John O'Leary.
It's, okay,
okay, go
Second.
ahead.
probably until the election.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
It'd be easy.
I second the motion.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion? I'll call for a vote, those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a wage authorization, okay, that is yours?
Yeah, no, it's not mine, it's for Jessica.
No, I know it's not
Oh.
yours, but
Uh-huh.
personally,
Jessica Crawford, she's just due her step increase, to step 3. She's been here for some years now, so she's moving up to 1691.
okay, do I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the wage increase for Jess Crawford, 1641.
Second the motion.
Okay, discussion. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have a request from the Lions Club to use the town hall on Wednesday, November 15th, 7 to 9 p.m. for a seminar on Lions Eye Research Fund. And they will be serving food. They anticipate approximately 50 people. Signed by Tim Mara. What is the pleasure of the board? We don't have anything else scheduled that night, right?
Nope.
Okay.
Make a motion to accept the Lions Club's request to use town property on, what was the date, the 15th?
November 15th.
November
15th.
Yeah. Okay, do I have a second?
Aye.
Okay, discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Selectmen's reports, did you gentlemen have anything you wish to bring up? And
Just, I've been working with Andy going over what's happened with this, with the bridge in Route 62.
Yep.
Looking over the letters that we got recently, they'd stated basically that they wanted us to do something now because they notified us on May 15th. And that really struck a nerve in me. I was already in office on May 15th. We'd heard nothing of it that I knew of until July.
No, that was Gaston Pond when we were talking May 15th.
Right, we weren't
Right.
talking about this.
Right.
So, what he's done is, if I get off topic, gonna tell me. The letter seems to have gone to, the local Department of Transportation first, which was accepted by them on the 22nd of May. And then it was sent to our office, to the interim town administrator. And from there, it looks like it just didn't get forwarded. The next time it was heard of was, I believe, in June, when they reached out to Jason at DPW. Of course, he'd said he'd heard nothing of it because he hadn't, and neither had we, in fact. And I've asked that he maybe make policies again for when documents come in, especially addressed to this board. It never came to this board. And that's a problem. When things get mailed here to us, we'd expect the administrator and assistant to open that mail and take care of it, but we do expect it to make it to this board.
Gary.
So I would think maybe, I'd suggested maybe signing off of things. If somebody signs for a document that comes, parcel post, and they sign for it, that when they hand it off, they should sign it off again. So there's a paper trail, and as Andy's saying, at least a digital trail when things are emailed. But it's frustrating to see that we've really had it for 2 months and our funds were all cut. It's not because we weren't acting, it's because it didn't get to us. And really just trying to figure out what happened so we can try to curtail it and come up with a method of making sure it doesn't happen again. Because the letter was indeed addressed to the Board of Selectmen.
You're right.
And attention of Jason Pimentel. Now, part of that is DOT never sent Jason a letter as well, which, being it has to do with the roads, it should have gone to DPW Commission. That's another elected board that takes care of our roads. The only real power this board has is to say, shut the road down. Everything else to do with the use of the road really should go through that commission, and they failed to notify that commission. So I'm hoping that perhaps there's a way to reach out to DOT and make sure that in the future that notifications are done, not just to this board that meets once a month, but perhaps the full-time personnel directly. And we change how things are handled when they come into the office to make sure that they're getting to us. If it's addressed to us, no matter what it is, it should come before us.
Yeah, I agree.
Are all letters addressed to the Board of Selectmen, especially letters that get the received stamp, technically are public records, right?
I mean, anything that we receive pretty much is public records, for the
So-
most part.
What I would like is, especially anything we receive from any other governmental body, or I guess anything that has any liability if we don't respond, to be scanned and emailed to us within the week of receipt. Because if it's a record, it's a record anyway, and then we all have quick access to it, because again, Greg and I don't have the opportunity to get in the office maybe as often as Charlie might, so Charlie might be able to get to read the letter, but we might not see it until the night of the meeting because it didn't make it to us prior to that. And if possible, I'd like to see if we could try to institute some type of a scanning of files like that as often as
That
possible.
might be a good method.
Because once it becomes, that makes it easier when there is a public records request, it's already scanned, it's there. So it's just kind of a good habit moving forward with some of these things to just go ahead and scan anyway.
I'm pretty sure since I've started, you know, pretty much that's been my policy. Or
No,
my
it's been good.
practice, so.
It-
Right. But once again, more making it an official policy. As I said, I've got absolutely no issues with how you've handled things at all in this position you're filling here. But I'd like to see it in a rigid policy so that we have something we expect to do and how we expect to follow it.
And this
And
isn't,
not because of what you've done, but because it wasn't done before, as I talked to you about it. It's about figuring out what went wrong and trying to develop a plan that prevents that from happening again.
also, I know it comes off differently, maybe based on how it's being discussed or whatever, but I recognize that we had a lot of transition and a lot going on during that period of the interim. So this isn't a blame thing. It happens when you have a lot of turnover, someone coming in that knows very little about the actual job responsibility, but we brought him in because he generally understood different governmental bodies, not so much all the different responsibilities of that role, to get us through until we could get a new one. And Faye did her best to fill in all the gaps and keep doing what she had to do. So I understand, I mean, things happen. So this isn't coming from me anyway, how could you not get that to it? So I just wanted to make sure it was stated, because sometimes if you don't say that, people think it's implied that we're blaming or this was done poorly, and I think it was just, there wasn't a lot better we could have done at that time.
I hope it
With the
was-
situation is all I meant, but
I
I
hope
think
it
this will
didn't
help
come
us
across that,
improve
yeah.
moving forward,
I
that's
hope
all.
it didn't come across that when I asked you to look at it. I wasn't trying to, I
Mhm.
think I said specifically, I'm not trying to lay blame. I'm trying to figure out how this failed. Absolutely not about trying to lay blame on it. But I think what we can see is, I think that obviously when we had the interim administrator, Phil was doing a lot, and Phil had other issues going on
Yeah.
in his own personal life. And I think there was a lot for him to take on and do, and I think this just gets under the, slipped through the cracks, so to speak, so it didn't go anywhere. So to prevent that, like you're saying, if we had a habit of those documents being scanned to us, that would prevent that from happening in the future. Since we know it could happen before, we just gotta take away the avenue that went wrong. And that's my concern. It wasn't,
Yeah.
what's done is done, it's gone. It sounds like to that end, that road will be up in just a couple of weeks, it will be repaired hopefully, and we'll move past that completely, but I didn't wanna let it go without addressing how we got here, because people have certainly, I'm sure they wonder when they listen, how did we get to this point that the money's gone? How long have you guys sat on this? And we haven't. And we meet, once a month. There's not a lot of interaction, so.
Hmm.
We meet twice a month.
Ah, sorry,
Are
yes.
you only here
yes,
once a month?
Twice a month. They get the gist
I'm
of
like,
it.
what once a month are you here?
Because we're here, like, the last notice pretty much said, close the road. And they sent that email out, and we got the email a week ago, but we don't have a chance to act on it. Even if, I think we got it on a Tuesday or something, but the way the posting works, had we tried to have a meeting about it, this is the first time we could have met with the legal days posting.
Yeah.
So there's nothing we can do to act on that outside of having emails back and forth, which is against the rules and against the law. It's hard for us to act any quicker than we have on this thing. And, it's still, because it falls under the roads, it falls really under the DPW commission. The only authority we have is to say, close the road, which that's not gonna happen on Route 62.
Right.
So it's gotta go through the DPW commission, and they're not gonna meet for another week. So, and by the time they meet, we're a week and a half away from it being done.
Clint?
It's-
You do realize that we have monies in articles for bridges. There's 32,000 there that's been put away. I think one of them was 2014.
Well,
We were putting 10,000 a year away. So we do have some money there that,
what they were demanding is we put stoplights in the road. A stop sign wasn't good enough, and we also have to block the road. So we couldn't just restrict, we had to physically restrict it and put up a stoplight. And the expense was gonna be either $8,000 a month until it was settled, or about 44,000 to buy a set of lights. So it's a pretty steep number, you know.
because they've got the same thing in that on 101, on the Templeton-Phillipston line. It's been
Right.
that way now for 3 years.
And we don't want it there
They
for
put
3
up-
years, but.
They put up Jersey barriers, and they have solar lights, just a red
Yeah.
light,
Mhm.
and they stop.
Yeah, that's what they were.
It would have been 8,000 a month to rent that, and if we did that for 3 years, if you run out 72 months at 8,000, you come up around $576,000 if my math is good. It would be smarter, because they're 44,000, but that, you'd go over half a million if you rented
They might have used ones or
them.
something that they bought.
But in the couple meetings we had to discuss how to proceed, they already took our state funds away. And that's how quick it hit us. We had a discussion about it, a discussion with the DPW about it, and then the next thing we're notified the funds are held up. It was that fast on us, because in their eyes, we've had since May. And, you know, we had mid-July. It's, you know, frustrating, and I'm
And
sure
I
people
think-
are frustrated because the paving's not getting done right now. It won't be
Yeah,
till
it's
spring.
very frustrating. I think part of the problem, you know, I don't know, Mass Highway could have handled this a little better themselves. And
They
I
really
was
should have
up here on
notified
a
Jason.
late Thursday afternoon, and some guy comes waltzing in wanting to know about this bridge. This was last June, I think it was like June, the last business day of June or something. I can't recall the specific date, but he comes waltzing in, and it's like, you know, well, why haven't you done this bridge? And it's like, well, who are you? And
What bridge?
yeah, what bridge? And, you know, and they're telling us that bridge, and we didn't really have anything there. That was the first I'd heard of it. And this is the last town meeting was over and everything. And, you know, I said, well, what happens if we can't do this? And he goes, well, I'm not in a position to say. And, you know, he said, it's not my decision anyway. I said, well, then you just told us we're supposed to close this bridge. So, you know, I mean, this is, I don't know whether we're being made an example of here somewhat or what. But, you know, my first thought was, well, let's find out if the bridge is near collapse at this point, because the first I'd heard of it was the last week in June. And we had to take it to Public Works and so on, and yeah, there was some talk about it, but I didn't think it was this eminent, to be honest with you.
Well, looks like the bridge evaluation that we did review at DPW was pretty much line for line the same ratings it had at the evaluation, I think, 2 years prior. So the condition of the bridge had not gone downhill at all in the 2 years. But they're prioritizing the work on bridges and things they want repaired differently now. Now, perhaps there was too many projects 2 years ago, so they couldn't push this one. I don't know why, but the ratings and the beams and the ratings and the bridge really have not changed. Just their actions have, so. We went from 2 years ago, it's good for 2 years, to the same ratings, you gotta shut it down and fix it now. It's very inconsistent.
Yeah, and they were pretty calloused about the shutdown issue, which I recall. There's really no viable alternatives to that particular road, so.
And for us to
Another
throw
one.
$50,000 at it just to restrict it, well, we found out an issue. I think we spent, what, just under 10,000 to have the engineering done. That's, you know, much less than 50 just to get lights. And the way it's gonna work out, we don't have the final numbers yet, but it's gonna be under 50,000, we believe, to have the whole repair done, which is what we're looking at for just lights. it was significant for us to not, you know, and although 32,000, the bridge account sounds great, it really was not gonna even cut it for this.
But it is there to be used for bridges, it's been sitting.
Well, maybe we'll tap into that very soon.
If you could just verify how much we have sitting in those accounts.
Okay.
That's all, I just wanted to
Yep.
make sure we, addressed
Thank you, that's a good point.
future.
Okay. I think if it were all right with the board, we have an executive session, and maybe, Andrew, most of your report is on the paper, right?
Yeah, this is the
Maybe
entire
we could
report.
read that on our own. If we had a question, we could give you a call.
Not a problem, go for it.
Okay, is that okay with you, gentlemen?
It's fine with me.
Yeah.
Did that end up being posted on Facebook like you've done before?
I'm sorry, which one is that?
Your report and the
Yes,
agenda?
Yep, that is all.
It's on the
publicly
town-
posted.
Town of
And-
Berry Facebook page too,
Okay.
so if anybody out there wants to read it, it's available.
Yeah, so anybody who asks, I send it to
Okay.
them directly.
And with that, I have, Dave, did you have anything else you need?
No, I guess I would just like to say thank you to everybody, and like, what a great job Halloween turned out to be. I know
Oh,
it's in
yes.
Andrew's report,
Yeah.
but just, we had a great time. Some of the town employees actually took time just to come out and hang out and just partake, even though they didn't have any real function with it. And, it was good, it was fun to see everybody, and Andrew and I and some other members hope that next year it's even bigger.
Yep, and we thank the
I heard
chief
a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
You guys
His
did great.
idea.
Yeah, we
Years
had a good
and-
time.
and the input from his department acting as kind of the catalyst for the whole thing. It was,
A lot of good feedback. I told Chief today, actually, I do a big thing at my house in Halloween, so I get normally about 300+ visitors there, and people had a lot of nice things to say about Uptown, and saw a lot more vehicles down at Rice Park and parking the road than we normally do, so I could tell the
Mhm.
traffic had picked up, so.
yeah, it was fun.
Mhm.
People brought me some pictures to show me so I could see, because I wasn't leaving my post, but it was very, very nice.
Yeah, it was fun, we had a good time. And we talked that night, Andrew and I, about things that we'd like to improve on or change next year.
And I was surprised, there were about 20-25 vehicles for the trunk or treat. That's, for a first time out, that's a lot, and I think that's gonna grow. People are gonna wanna get involved in that next year after seeing it. Someone's gonna say, I wanna put
People
something
down
out
at
there.
Ruggles.
That's what we heard that night.
Yep, a lot of people just, they don't get into Halloween because, you know, you live in the outskirts and you don't get the chance to decorate and participate. And it's fun to give the candy out and see the kids come by. And,
Mhm.
very, very, very happy with the event.
Yep,
Yeah, it was fun.
and I think Christmas in Barry will be a nice event this year
Yes.
again. Yeah. We have an executive
One thing
yeah.
we should consider going forward is a possible holiday committee or a
Mhm.
Halloween committee going forward. 'Cause as this grows, we're gonna need more
Okay,
Increase support.
more ideas, more support, more
Mhm.
assistance, so we can
Yeah,
talk about it
absolutely.
going forward, but.
okay.
Mhm.
And
We have an executive session
Thank you for
scheduled.
coming out. Thank you for coming out.
Yes, thank you.
have a good night. Look at 8:30? Wow.
Well, we're not done yet, so.
Well, we're not, but everyone
Yeah.
else can be. That's,
Okay, we'll be
We'll see
in,
you Wednesday night.
Yes, we will
Yeah.
see you.
yeah.
And then again next week. Tis the season.
okay, I will need a motion to go into executive session. We'll be in for how long? About
10
what?
10 minutes.
10 to 15 minutes?
Yep.
I will make a motion that we enter executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 19, Exemption 2. And close from there and adjourn.
Yeah, come out, come back into open session to
Uh-huh.
adjourn.
I'll come back, okay, come back to open session to adjourn.
Okay. Do I have a motion and a second?
Second, I
And we have to have a roll call vote of the board. In favor?
Aye.
Favor?
Aye.
Myself is in favor.
Hey,
Okay.
how's it going?